so excited.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Ying Yang, the podcast, episode 10. We are live tonight. I know that everyone sees a new face. So we're just going to start with saying that we do have Miss Cassandra on the live with us tonight, who is Homegirl's Homegirl on both TikTok and Instagram. So please go
Hello.
follow her, hit her up, talk to her if
Hey.
you need anything.
Hello.
So we're gonna before we start at the beginning of every podcast, we play our disclosure to make sure that everybody knows. So we're gonna go ahead and play that disclosure now.
Ying Yang the podcast does not own rights to any background music or noise you may hear. This podcast is completely opinion based and may include adult content, adult language, and verbiage not suitable for any underage viewers. Information found in this podcast may not contain exact accuracy as it is opinion based. Please listen at your own risk.
All right. So with that being said, tonight's topic is going to be disrespect in relationship. So to start off tonight, I'm going to go ahead and just pass the mic over to Sheena.
Yes, our topic is a heavy one tonight, but it's a all too familiar one because a lot of people deal with the disrespect in relationships. And I actually got a poem here I'm going to read to you guys. That's based on our topic. So I'm just going to go ahead with it. Um, a lot of my poetry is like spoken word, so just to give you a kind of how I flow with my writing. So here we go. Relationships are hard. Disrespect cross line. Love can't stand. It's disrespectful when she called your phone. It's disrespectful when you allowed her touch. It's disrespectful when you told me lies. Relationships can cause burdens, disrespect, ruins hearts love can't save. It's disrespect to be disloyal. It's disrespect to be dishonest. It's disrespect to fake love, the one true love you had in your corner. Repeated disrespect just ends relationship.
What do they do
And
in
that's
the
the
in,
truth.
in the poetry read? Snap the fingers.
Yeah, you
Finger
know how they
snap.
do Instagram. What's that old movie they used to do the finger snap?
Yeah. That
So
was
with
that was
that
really
being
good.
said, it was really good. And it's the truth. I mean,
Mhm.
with that being said, that kind of says a lot as a writer from you because you people that write poetry typically write from experience, not from common knowledge. Um, so
Right.
what do you feel is the most disrespectful thing that you've ever dealt with in a relationship then? And that has a follow-up question after you answer it.
I know because you always play devil advocate. Look at you over there smiling and cheesing because you know you're going to play devil advocate and we're going to go back and forth like we
She's
always
already
do.
got the questions locked and loaded.
Right, because she always put me on spot. She wanted me to pick my brain. Okay, so what was the
That's what we're here
question now?
for.
All right, so question number 1, and I'm gonna ask Cassandra the same question, just so we're
Right.
clear.
I'm ready.
So the first part 1 of the question is, what is the worst disrespect that you encountered in relationships?
Well, I would say like one of the worst in my book is I'm really big on honesty. Like, I mean, being truthful. So one of the big ones, like I guess in my book, would be being lied to because coming from the past that I came from, is like I have real bad like trust issues. So one of the ones is just that loyalty, disloyal, dishonest. So it's like
Okay.
that's really to the disrespect. But I get to, are you talking about like, overall or like certain instances, like, what something happened to me that I was like the ultimate disrespect? Um, I guess it would be like my ex. The only thing well, the one thing above all is I was gonna go ahead and say is when my ex cheated on me and then had a baby with the girl. So that was like the ultimate incident that happened as far as
Okay.
disrespect.
Part
Now, what's
two
your
of the same question. Why did you stay with them after that happened?
Ooh, she digging deep. Mic
yeah,
drop.
she's going.
Listen,
She's
I'm
going
going to
to
answer the same question, y'all. I promise.
so Cassandra, get your answer ready. Just go ahead and get it
Oh,
ready. She
I'm ready.
advocate you too next.
I
Um,
am so ready.
a lot of people relationship, like I said with the poem, like relationships are just hard because it takes a lot of give and take. And then like when you I guess give your all into a relationship and you give your all into that person and you see something in them or you see yourself, you know, I guess being in the future with them or you in love with them or you love them to a certain extent, then you want to hold on to, whatever it is that you have or had with them. You remember the good times and you remember this and that and third, especially like if you came from like, a background where you still, you needed that person or you need that person to, not survive, but, feel like, and you're in your safe spot. So a lot of times I think, and I know it's like with me, I find myself in the same predicament. It's like you want to hold on to that because you don't want to, something different. You don't, it's the same. You're comfortable and you don't want to let go of that comfort because you're scared to go to the unknown. So you put up or you deal with disrespect, you deal with different things until you get strong enough to let go. And I know you
I'm
got
not
another
laughing at you.
follow up.
I'm not laughing at you, Sheena. I promise. I am laughing at Amanda where she's already ready.
I got a part three.
What is this with the part three?
Listen, because it just came to me, and that's how it's got to flow, man. Because now we're all invested in this situation that happened with this ex man, and so I need to know what was the final straw. Like, how far was too far for you to be like, okay, you know what, I can't do this anymore. When did
Mm-hmm.
or what happened to make the how far is too far happen for you to finally say, you know what, I washed my hands.
When you get tired of being sick and tired, like at some point, and this is what I
And I'm not
preach
talking about
about
all, I'm talking about that direct situation. The person that
that
had a
direct.
baby on you.
When you get, like I said, tired of being sick and tired of giving your 110% and they just continue to act like they don't give a shit, then you get fed up and tired and then you get to a point where you just be like, I'm tired, sick and tired of being tired, and you already tell yourself you can't ignore the red flags anymore because you see them. Like we all see, like we've been in relationships where we see red flags pop up, but we don't want to acknowledge them. We just, slide them underneath the rug, bypass them, and deal with them later. But it comes a time when you get tired of dealing with the red flags, or you dealing with, the disrespect, and things are not going better. Things are not, moving step forward. We're not getting anywhere, and you're still in that hurt spot, and you get tired of being in that hurt spot. So you just, it's like wake up, a light bulb go off in your head, and you're like, okay, enough is enough. And you get strong enough to walk away when you say enough is enough. And that's why I preach and go so hard in my life coaching with self love, because I've been through that. You got to love yourself enough to know when to say when is enough, that you're not going to put up with it. You're going to demand more respect, and know that if you're not getting the respect that you need, or you didn't had enough of the disrespect in your relationship, that you know when to walk.
Okay.
Preach.
No, and I mean, yeah, I completely agree, and I think that and I'm not even gonna say every woman, every person on the planet has been at that point. Even if it was something that for some people may seem frivolous or something like that, like even in high school, you get to a point where you're tired of the disrespect that you receive from somebody that you think you're building with. So I completely agree with you, Sheena. And guess what? You don't have to feel like the victim anymore. I'm going to move over to Cassandra and ask her the same questions.
Yeah.
Cassandra,
Okay, so the first question being, what do I consider to be one of the most disrespectful things, right?
that has happened to you.
That has happened to me. I think we all can agree with what Sheena said, the lies, right? Of course, the lying, the cheating. Those are just like common. I feel like those are almost not even like opinions that those are disrespectful. It's more like a fact, like that's like crossing a line, right? Unless you're in an open relationship, that you would see that as crossing a line. So I would agree with that. But for me, I I kind of also take it a step further. Um, and to me, one of the most disrespectful things you can do, really, to me, in any relationship, whether it's a friendship, a boyfriend, a husband, a coworker, for me, is cursing at me. I have a really like, it's almost like a pet peeve of mine. Um, where if you curse at me, I'm not saying you can't curse in front of me, but cursing
Right.
at me, to me, is crossing a line. I'm not okay with that. I always give credit to my parents. My parents weren't cursers, and that's not why. It's that they never cursed at me. So the way I always saw it is, if my parents don't talk to me that way, no one has the right to talk to me that way. And I always felt like that from a young age. And I remember when I was younger, I had a boyfriend in high school, and he cursed at me. I was ready to leave him. I was ready to break up with him because of it. My mom, however, encouraged me to stay with him now, to defend my mom, because I know some people are like, oh, they're gonna come for my mom. Do not come for my mom. My mom has been on disability for a long time. She has been physically sick for a long time. And unfortunately, when, especially like this is over 15 years ago, they didn't know how to treat it. So they just like medicate. So to me, it was the medications, because she would have never normally have told me that. She would have encouraged me, like, leave him. But she was not herself. So she did encourage me to stay with him. And then the verbal abuse of just like that one time cursing at me turned into more cursing at me, turned into putting me down, turned into putting his hands on me. And so even more so now, I kind of see it as a gateway. If you don't stop that disrespect from the beginning, it is likely that it's going to escalate. It may not always escalate to physical abuse. I'm not saying that as soon as someone curses at you, they're going to get physical with you. No, but to me, once that line is crossed, it's really hard to then go back, right? If you let someone curse at you, call you, the B word, put you down, if you don't stop it right away, or even like leave that person right away, 6 months down the line, you really think you're gonna tell me, look, when you say these things to me, like, they're really hurtful. Like, you think they're just gonna change? It's one of those things that I would say, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. So to me, when you talk to me that way, I'm gonna believe that you are not capable of respecting me. So I would say that is, a lot of people think it's no big deal, and that's on them, right? That this is more of like an opinion. This one's more of an opinion.
Yep.
That I would say cursing at me is completely disrespectful, unacceptable. I really don't care who you are. I'm not okay with it.
No, and that's a great way to put it, because you're attacking the problem from the beginning.
Yeah. Yes.
And that
Because
Gotta stop it.
you didn't say like, hey, the verbal abuse or the physical abuse. You said, listen, the beginning, I knew then that this was a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And it confirmed it because I always felt like, no, don't talk to me that way. Like, don't talk to me. Because what gives you, like I said, for me, it was like, what gives you the right? My parents didn't talk to me that way. So what gives you the right to talk to me that way? Especially if I'm being respectful to you. Like if I don't talk to you that way, I would never put you down. I would never curse at you, call you names. Like that's not okay. And I don't care who it is. It's not okay. It's just crossing a line. To me, it clearly says to me, you doing that to me says to me, you don't respect me.
Right. Right. Okay. So let me hit you with part two.
Okay.
So, with that being said, so I got to switch your part two up a little bit because I don't know your background or your story, whereas I know
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more about Sheena's. So, with that being said, at the point that you wanted to walk away and you were encouraged to stay with him, that makes sense. So that's why you stayed then. But when it then escalated to verbal abuse, why did you stay?
So for me, two reasons. I was young. I'm talking about I was 14. So we are
Okay.
young and dumb, you know. Two, kind of similar to what Sheena said, when you start off with someone, usually in the beginning there's like that honeymoon phase, right? Um, so one, this person was my best friend before. We were best friends. He asked me out a bunch of times. I kept saying no. I'm like, look, we're friends. Let's just keep it that way. He kept on asking me. I finally said yes. I broke up with him a week later because I was his best friend. I knew who he was, right? When someone shows you who they are, you believe them. So I knew who he was. I broke up with him and he hysterically cried. And I was like taken aback because I'm like, in my mind, we could just go back to a week ago. We could just go back to being best friends, no biggie, right? Like, but he like hysterically cried. I was like, please, like, you don't know how much I care about you. So I stayed. And this was before the abuse. This is literally a week after saying yes to being his girlfriend. So I would say the first 6 months, everything was chef's kiss perfection. And then things started going down. And at that point, I was already in love, and I know what people are thinking. Like, okay, you were 14, you weren't in love.
Right.
I'm 35. I am married. I'm married to Sheena's brother, and I love him. But even loving him, people always say when you get older you'll realize it wasn't love. No, I did love him at 14. I did. Our families knew each other. My parents were together since they were 14. So to me, being with someone forever from the age of 14 was very possible. My parents were that. They were high school sweethearts. So to me, it was like, well, look, they met at 14. They've been together ever since. They're still together now. Like, so to me, that example was like, this could be real. Like, and I did love him. And like I said, I was young and dumb. So I stayed because I'm like, well, maybe we can get back to that 6 months, or we can get back to who he was as my friend. Um, so that's why I stayed, just hoping that, like, okay, they're gonna go back to that. Like, I saw how great he could be, but just because someone can be great doesn't mean they are great, right? Even bad people can be good to somebody, and they're still bad people. Even though they have good moments, they may have sweet moments, then they may be good to some people, but they could still be a bad person. So that's why I stayed.
Do you know my ex?
I do because I know you. I do because it's not the same ex. But yeah, I mean it's a common thing, right? But he was young too, and not that to make excuses, because wrong is wrong. I don't care really how old you are. There's certain lines that, again, that should not be crossed. It's even sadder to me that he was so young and abusive then. No shade to him, but I just hope that he's grown. I hope.
So, what
Yes.
was the final moment to end everything between the two of you?
The final moment was because every time he cheated on me, I always heard he like kissed another girl. I was always like, oh yeah, he made out with so and so, which, not that it makes it any better. I'm not saying that. It finally came out that he had sex with someone else. And then that's when I was like, and I hate to say it, I stayed with him. I stayed with him and being completely vulnerable. The first time we had sex after, like everything he was doing to me, I saw in my mind him doing to her. And I was like, I thought I could do this. I thought I could forgive you, but I can't. Like, I can't forgive you. So that
And
was
once you get to
when.
that point, it's time to walk.
Yeah, like so, and I was 16, so I was with him for 2 years. So for a good year and a half, I did deal with it, but then I made a point to never, ever, ever get into that situation again. I feel like at such a young age, for 2 years, I went through the cheating, I went through the lies, I went through the disrespect, the verbal abuse, the physical abuse. And I walked out of that knowing that I never want to experience that ever again. I was so stressed. Like there was even a time my hair was falling out. Like for such a young age, I give God the glory and the credit, because I just feel like for me to have that mentality so young to then not fall into the same like habit, I just knew that I was like, okay, I don't want somebody unless it's real. That wasn't real. That wasn't real love. I loved him for real, but he didn't love me for real. So that was not real love. So at 16, I was like, I don't want this like little dating, this little hooking up. Like I didn't want none of it if it wasn't gonna be real. And that's why I was single for a long time, because at 16, who wants real, right? Like who wants that deep connection, that real deep connection? Nobody. So I stayed single for a long time until that said I knew.
You
I
can.
didn't hear that, Sheena.
Oh no, I'm just saying. Sometimes if you meet the right person at 16, or you can, feel that way, but it has to be genuine on both sides.
And what boy at 16 wants that, right? To be together forever, to be loyal, to be committed. Like that's what I wanted, because I had the opposite. I had what it was to not be committed, to not be loyal, to not have respect, and so that's why I knew. I was like, I just never want to experience this ever again. And not to say that, I remember my friend one time said, you're too picky, because I would talk to guys, I would get to know guys, but that's how I then knew that they weren't for me, because I would see who they were and I would believe them. My one friend said sometime, you're too picky. And I told her, I said, tell me one guy that I told you about that you felt that I should have given a chance and I didn't. And she stayed quiet because there was no one. I was like, exactly. There was nobody, girl. I'm not going to date someone just for the sake of dating someone. I'm good. I could do bad all by myself.
So I'm gonna play devil's advocate now,
Ugh.
because I just thought about a point that a question I want to ask, because you
Yeah.
also talked about going through that physical abuse along with the mental abuse, with the verbal abuse, them talking down to you. And that's when, you have that mental abuse. It messes with your self-esteem, really. So what do you find more disrespectful? I'm asking because I also been through both sides. Like, when I was in a relationship with Adam's dad, he put his hands on me. So that was at
Mm-hmm.
the point where I said I had enough, and I walked away. So my question is, to play devil's advocate, what do you think is more disrespectful? Is the verbal abuse or the physical abuse?
Um, that's a really hard question to
Can I
answer.
chime in?
Yes.
Okay. So, and this is just my opinion. I too have been through both sides and both aspects. So, I can tell you that physical abuse, I bounce back from really fast. And this is just me personally, because it's a physical scar. It happened. I move forward. Verbal abuse sticks in your head. You might be able to forget that that person put their hands on you, and you might be able to let that slide, but every time you look in the mirror, you're going to remember when they called you ugly. You're going to remember when they told you were too fat. You're going to remember the times that they told you were too stupid to understand what they were saying to you. Verbal abuse hits you on such a different level. And I'm not saying physical abuse has
Yeah.
no toll, but verbal abuse sticks around a lot longer than the physical abuse does. And that's just my opinion. It did for me. I don't know about other people. So
Yeah.
that's just my opinion on that.
I
I agree.
I would
To get
for
back
me,
from.
I would say in my book they're kind of equal. Um because and I think for me I was a little more I don't want to say a stubborn, but I didn't really let like the cheating hurt me probably more than anything, more than the physical, um more than the verbal, because every time he apologized and he told me he was going to change, I truly believed him. It wasn't like I thought, no, you're not, and I stayed with him. I was just like, okay, like he said he's gonna be and again, because I had that 6 months of just like perfection. We were best friends before that. I knew how great he could be. So I'm like, okay, we're gonna just go back to that. So I would say everyone is different. I think it's also the severity, right? Somebody who got stabbed 16 times might say the physical abuse more than the verbal abuse, you know? So for me, to be honest, the thing that bothered me more than anything was the cheating, because every time he apologized, I truly forgave. I wasn't that girl that was like, okay, I forgive you, but then kept throwing in his face. Or when he said he was going to go out, you're going to cheat on me, aren't you? Like I wasn't. When I forgave, I truly forgave. I truly moved on. I didn't hold it against him or over his head. I didn't bring it up. Like, so every time it was like a wound all over again when I'm like, wow, like again, like you told me you were going to change. So for me, I definitely think everything's different. But when I think of other people in the past and what they've said to me, I do agree with Amanda, that does stick. That does stick, which I hate. I hate that it stuck, but it does. I do get it. The verbal abuse does kind of stick, have a long lasting effect.
All right. So I guess since I hit y'all with those questions, it's my turn to answer
It
them.
is your turn.
In the hot seat now.
All right. So a lot of my followers don't really know a lot about my past relationships. The two on here do. So this isn't going to come as like a big shock to them, but trigger warning for all of those listening. Um, so the worst piece of disrespect I think that I ever dealt with, that I felt was the most disrespectful thing I ever dealt with, is in my marriage. I was sitting at home, um, waiting on my anniversary dinner. I got all dolled up. I looked all perfect. I was ready to go, hit the town. And now, mind you, I didn't go out a lot. I was in the house a lot. I worked a lot, and I focused on chasing my dreams and things like that. So I didn't go out and do a lot of things. So I know what sounds dumb, like going out to eat to dinner to some people. That was a really big deal for me. I don't do really well out in social settings a lot. So I was super excited all day long. And then 5 o'clock came, and then 6 o'clock came, and then 7 o'clock came. And I was like, okay, well, and he wasn't answering his phone, it was turned off. And I had no way to get a hold of him. And so I called his sister, who only lived like 20 minutes from us. And I was just like, hey, I was just wondering if you heard from so and so. And she was like, no, I haven't. I'm so sorry. And I was like, no, it's okay. No big deal. I just want to see if he was safe, but thanks. And I got off the phone. And then I was bored scrolling, what we do, scrolling on Facebook. And she was live. And she was just live and she was like recording her TV because it was playing like some kind of Christmas movie. But in the TV, I could see in the reflection that my husband was sitting on her couch with another female. And it's that point in my marriage that I realized, number one, I was in it all by myself. Number two, he was clearly doing whatever he wanted with no regard to how it made me look or feel. And three, his family knew.
Mm.
And for me, the reason I say that's the most disrespectful thing I've had to deal with is because whew, I can deal with a lot of things, but I'm a very private person. So you're not just out dogging me out and making me feel like crap and having to deal with it. You are doing it in front of people that smile in my face and tell me that they love and care about me.
Yeah.
So for me, that was the ultimate disrespect. So, question number 2, why did I stay? Well, and this is deep rooted. And I don't know how many other people will relate to this, but I'm just going to put it out there. I grew up a girly girl. I also grew up, and anyone that knew me growing up knows this. I grew up the fat, funny friend. I was always overweight. Didn't know how to do my hair. I didn't know how to do my makeup. I went out of my way to be as intelligent as I could because I felt like that was the only way society would accept me. So as I got older, I grew into my looks and I grew into all these things. But because of the deep rooted issue of always being the outcast growing up, all your friends talk about, oh, even like I didn't have a bunch of boyfriends and things like that, but all my friends would be like, oh, me and so are going to college together and then we're going to get married. By the time I hit 22 years old, 80% of my friends were married. Almost 100% of them had children. And I was just out here going, dang, maybe I should get another degree. So it was kind of instilled through my own insecurities and then all the things that you learn growing up a girly girl. Like I was taught, not by particular people, but I was taught like women don't cut their hair and women walk a certain way and women talk a certain way and women act a certain way. And those aren't things my mother instilled in me. Those are things that men around me instilled in me. And the only thing that my grandmother ever said is, baby, you got to learn to cook so you can get that ring. And so I grew up with the understanding that I was supposed to grow up and get married and be a good wife to some man, regardless of how bad it got. And that's not something my mother instilled, and I mean, to this day, my mother will still tell you that I should have walked out on her wedding day. But I stayed because I had fought my entire life to find someone that thought I was as worthy as marriage as I thought I was. And when I found him, I was like, darn, like I found my one, da da da. And so I kept telling myself that these little things of disrespect were just temporary problems that most marriages probably had, but nobody discussed marriage issues aloud because I come from a private home. So I was like, everybody probably goes through this. I just got to get through it. We just got to talk it out. And I did every single thing in my power to save my marriage, even after I knew it was over. But
Yeah.
I did it all from a sense of I don't want to be the person that failed at marriage.
I get that. I get that. I get that because I kind of felt that way, but you don't want to fail, and you like, dang, you fail something else because especially if you have so much other stuff that's in your life that doesn't go right, you'd be like, dang, that's one more thing I'm gonna fail at. So you try and try, to make it work, but in the end, it's like beating a dead horse.
Yeah.
I think it's important, and please don't anyone take this as I'm saying to stay in a situation that you already know you need to get out of. But I do think it's it's important to feel like you did try everything, because I think it helps you not to look back. Because if you don't, then you think like, well, what if I did this, or what if I did that, or what if I could tell you now the what ifs are not going to matter. I could tell you that, but sometimes you got to prove things to yourselves, right? So again, I'm not saying for anyone that when you're being disrespected, people don't change, right? Like even ourselves, when we want to make a change in ourselves, it's not easy for ourselves. So imagine us trying to change somebody else. We can't even change ourselves. I mean, my resolution for year after year has been to lose weight, lose weight, right? Like do different things. Everyone does resolutions, but they don't actually change. So we can't even, it's hard to even change ourselves. How are we going to change other people? So I'm not saying Let me make that clear. I'm not saying to stay anyone in that situation. That's not what I'm saying. However, I do understand exhausting all options so that you don't look back and wonder because they always come back. When you leave, they always come back. They always hit you up, try to get you to come back. Always, always. And I always say it's easy when you leave when they're not looking for you. But when they start looking for you, that's when it's hard. When they start looking for you again, and if you can then say like, nah, like I really tried everything. There is nothing left
You
for
have
us to
that
try. We
closure.
tried it all. So kudos to you ladies, because I know you both can say that. I know it came with a lot of struggles and a lot of pain, but I think it's important for you guys to be able to have that closure and fully move on, knowing that like no, like I gave it my 100%, and there was nothing else to give, and there was nothing left, and that's why you left.
That's why, like,
So,
when you get that closure and you get that moment of absolute, like, you're done,
Mm-hmm.
done, then they can call all they want to. It's not going to phase you because you
Mm-hmm.
already shut that door.
well, and that takes me right into number 3. Like, so my number 3 answer is, so what was the thing that made me ultimately decide I was done? Um, and let me tell you, it was a long road, guys. It wasn't like a short, because I literally tried everything. I did everything I could to make my marriage work. And what was the final straw in our situation? And now, mind you, he had left multiple times before this. And I don't want to say I begged him to come home, but I always found a way to entice him to return. Whether it was emotions or begging, or, this is the vow that you made before God. Who are you to now change your mind? Whatever it was, I would use those situations to make him come home. But right after the whole Floyd thing happened, and the Black Lives movement was a very large, thing at the time. I don't know if y'all remember, but around that same time, the Black Militia came out
Mm-hmm.
and they were posting a lot of videos and stuff like that. Well, he got really tied up in those videos. And he was very vulnerable and impressionable as a person because of his mental health state. And that's not an excuse by far. But that's just the reality of why he got so caught up in it. Um, but I remember him sitting at our front door. Now, he had came home convinced that I had skipped work, so that I could meet with, um so I don't even know the name of the person, some guy that he made up in his head, that I met. He says that I met him at a gas station and we hooked up and then I came home. And that wasn't a true statement, but he was very angry and very upset about it. And that was just another thing that he would do when he was trying to go do something disrespectful. And so I had said to him, you know what? Whatever it is that you want to go do, just go do it. But don't make me feel like crap just to do it. And he was like, well, wait, you're trying to get rid of me. That means you're up to something. So he then sat in front of our front door with a sawed off shotgun. And I sat afraid for my life on a couch as this man looked me in my face and told me he no longer wanted to be married to a white woman. And that's the first and only time in my entire life that I did not respond with anything but okay. And I let it sit like that. I went to bed that night. I woke up the next day and he was like, hey, when I asked him flat out, like, hey, did you mean that? And he was like, yes. And I was like, okay, then I release you. Go. Go do whatever it is you want to do. And that was the day he moved out. That was the end of our relationship. And that was okay. But Cassandra, you are completely right. At the point that I moved away and got my life back together. And I don't want to say got back together, y'all, because when I walked out of that marriage, I literally walked away with the clothes on my back. And I put everything in my little tiny Kia car and I drove all the way to Georgia to my mama's house.
Okay.
And I was just like, hey, I need to stay here. Um, so, but in doing that, I had felt better and more free. And as soon as I started to feel alive again and human again, and like I deserved an opinion and a voice, all of a sudden he tracked me down. And all of a sudden he was like, listen, I wasn't in a good headspace. I have some mental health issues, da da da. And I was like, no, because no matter how hard after that point that you have been that hurt, it will never be what it was before. Just like the same, when you throw a
Mhm.
wine glass, it's going to break into a million pieces. And you can
Look,
glue it
Mhm.
back together, but it's still
Mhm.
never going to hold the liquid or the foundation that you need it to for a strong, healthy marriage. And at that point, I was done. But if I hadn't exhausted all those options prior to that day, then I would have let that man say that to me, and I'd have got up the next day and I'd have made his breakfast,
Mm.
because that's who I was as a person,
Mhm.
you know? But with that being said, guys, I have a new question.
oh,
I have
Lord.
a question too.
Okay, do you want to do your question first?
I do.
It might be the same
My
as mine. That's
question,
why I said
yeah,
that.
yeah. My question is, I know for me, I can never tell you the answer is yes. But you guys, and even for the people watching, were there red flags early on? Or were you completely, truly, truly, let's be really, I know you guys keep it real here. So truly keeping it real, were you completely blindsided by the overall disrespect, whether it was the cheating, whether it was the lying, whether it was the physical or verbal abuse? Were there any red flags in the beginning that in hindsight you're like, you know what, I should have I should have paid attention to that red flag? Go
I'll go
ahead,
first.
Ying.
I'm gonna be real. Yeah. And I'll explain a little bit, because there's no shame. I'm
Yeah,
human. I make mistakes, and
yeah.
as I say to everybody all the time, this is no judgment zone. We're gonna be real here because it's gonna help somebody. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I
That's right.
I started I moved in with this man after he came home from prison. We knew each other prior. We knew each other for years prior. He knew my family. Um, and I knew his. So when he came home from prison, we moved in together. And it wasn't long after that I started to see little signs, like the fact that he told me that Black people couldn't have mental illnesses. Um, and so I was like, oh, I didn't know that mental illness chose certain races. But and then as time went on, even prior to us actually getting married, he was accusing me of being in the FBI. And for
Mm.
those of you that know me,
I thought it was the
anyways,
CIA.
um,
She's not a good guy.
and then when he tried to figure out I wasn't the FBI, I was a leader of a gang. And for those that know me, um, so there were a lot of signs right there. But even up until, so those were just like kind of random red flags. My biggest red flag was my proposal in marriage. I was proposed to on my birthday, which is the 12th. It was, and I at a costume party. So I was proposed to, and he didn't do it in front of my family. He waited for everybody to leave, and then he proposed to me. And then 2 days later, he said, "Hey, we're getting married on Sunday." And I said, "Oh, well, I don't have a lot of time to plan then. I got to find a dress, and I got to call my mom." And he was like, "No, we're going to do it without our families." And I was like, "Oh, okay." He was like, "Yeah, because my family's not going to be able to make it. So I'm going to feel uncomfortable. And I think it's unfair if your family comes."
Hmm.
Well, come to find out, his family would have came, but they didn't know. Um, and I told my family, but I told them that, it was really last minute and they didn't need to come, and we were just going to do it alone. And try not to tear up. It broke my dad's heart,
Hmm.
but I did it. And from that moment forward, I knew that I had gotten myself into a situation where that man was going to make every choice for me moving forward. But in my brain, that's what a husband does. That's what a husband is, a leader.
Hmm.
So I was like, go for it. So yes, my answer is yes. Next.
Yang.
I guess it's my turn. Um,
Were there red flags? That's the question. Early on, were there red flags, or were you completely blindsided by the behavior of your ex?
my my answer is I've been in both. I've been completely blindsided, and I've been, with my ex. I seen the red flags. I knew they were there, but I just wasn't in a right state of mind to accept them. So I
Mm-hmm.
definitely, made excuses, I would say, for them. Now, my other ex before that, um, I didn't see those red flags. We were like I was with him. He was like my best friend in the whole wide world. Like he came into my life at a time where I was dealing with a lot of stuff from my childhood. So he like taught me a lot of things, like how to be independent, how, grind and hustle to get what I need to take care of myself. So I don't have to be dependent on nobody else. So like I fell, hard real quick, and like in my eyes, like he was like the greatest. Like, anything he said was golden. Like I would do a drop of a dime, I would just go out and do it. Been by his side and everything. So it's like by the time I did see, he lied a lot. Like I would say, let me tell you, well, I guess to give you a little bit of backstory is like one day I was over his house and I seen him driving his car, and I was like, well, who car this is? Like I never seen this car before. And he was like, oh, that's my cousin's car. I said, okay. So the next weekend or whatever, I was visiting, and I was like, come to find out, it wasn't his cousin's car. It was the girl he was trying to talk to. Well, he was talking to while I was not around because we didn't live in the same town. So, like, I didn't know what he was doing unless, Monday through Friday, I only, visit on the weekend. So, when I popped in on the weekend, is when I found out stuff. So then, like, I didn't find out till the following weekend or whatever. I was down there visiting or whatever, and this person came to the house. A girl came to the house, and she was mad that I was there. And
Mm.
I looked outside, and I seen the same exact car. So I was like, "Oh, your cousin's car? How like she's driving the so-called cousin's car?" Right. So we
How
actually
long?
like
How long were you dating before this incident?
it's like 7 years.
7 years before this incident, and that was the first incident.
The first, yeah, yeah. The
Amanda
first
said no.
Hold on. Are we talking about the guy whose name begins with a T?
yes.
He was red flag central. She lying to y'all.
Whoa,
Oh,
like
well, no. Well, look. Let me say this. She did say that she didn't see any. So, I mean, I don't know what
Right,
that
right.
means.
And you were
It doesn't
really
mean that
young,
they're not
Sheena.
there.
So
It doesn't mean they're
oh
not
right,
no,
there, right?
right.
Sometimes they're there, and love is blind, right? There's a whole song about it. Great song. Kind of coincides with what we're talking about. But
exactly.
yeah.
I gave y'all the backstory because like I met him at 17, and it's like he came into the part of my life where things was not right. Like I said, so like when I said like everything was golden, like everything he spoke, I followed. So it's
It was
like
law. Yeah, because you
yeah,
were
it
so
was
young and you
all.
were
So
so
I don't
vulnerable.
need the flags until it's like to like I didn't see the red flags as far as like, the physical abuse that he put me through because it would happen that like I would have never thought he would, put his hands on me. That was that red flag that he was actually, abusive. Caught me
So there was
by
no anger issues that you noticed, or verbal, nothing verbal before it literally went from absolutely nothing to him putting his hands on you?
When I would come into town, he would it's red carpet treatment. It
Hmm.
was red carpet treatment when I was around. So that's why it's like I didn't see the red flags. And then that
Yeah.
night when I seen him in that car and I started putting my mind started, going. I started putting two to two together. And I was like, okay, I'm not cool with this because you just got caught in a lie. Then he was like, oh, so you wouldn't. I was ready to leave. I was ready to be like, I'm done. I'm not going to put up with that anymore because I was already on the verge of being done because, a couple months before that, I had gave him an ultimatum because I wanted to move and I wanted to settle down and move away so we can build a life together. And he just was like, not ready to do that. He's not ready to take
Girl,
that
girl,
step.
that's a red flag.
Right. Oh,
That's a
that's
red
what
flag
I'm
right there. After 7 years, after 6 years, because that's okay. I can see how you didn't see the red flags because that is a red flag. It's not, you're not talking about 6 months. Yeah, we're together.
Yeah, I was so tied up that like that part I didn't see or didn't acknowledge those red
Hmm.
flags were actually red
Yeah.
flags. So it wasn't until like he put his hands on me that I was like, okay, red flag. But I never like would have suspected. Like that's something I wasn't, that's why I said that one was unexpected because I would have never suspected it to go that far that it did.
What
Mm.
about you? Because Cassandra, your situation that you speak on is from when you were really young.
Hmm.
So do you feel like you saw the red flags even as a child? Or, and I don't mean child in a negative or derogatory way at all, but do you feel like
Yeah,
you
yeah,
saw
yeah.
those red flags as a child? Or do you feel like you were kind of blindsided because you were so young and he was your friend?
So I was blindsided with how far. I was more blindsided with the how far it got because our families knew each other. Like we even shared a cousin, which sounds weird, we weren't related, but like his aunt, so his dad's sister had a relationship with like my second cousin and they had a baby, so technically like that baby is his cousin because it's his aunt's son and it's my cousin's baby. So
It makes you your
our
second cousin.
families, like, because our families were so tight, I think that alone made me feel like that he would respect me. However, 100%, I was his best friend. I knew all the girls he played out. I knew all the girls he liked. I knew a lot of what he was doing as far as cheating wise. I would say the verbal and physical abuse, how bad it got, was a little surprising, but that's why I kept saying no to him. He kept asking me to be his girlfriend. I was like, no, no. That's why a week later, I felt it in my gut. I felt it in my gut that I made the wrong decision. I was like, nah, let's just be friends. Let's rewind, hit the rewind button to a week ago where we were still just friends, and let's just still be just friends. So absolutely, I the red flags were there. Like I said, not so much the physical and verbal abuse, but the disrespect, the cheating. I already knew he cheated on every girlfriend before me, like, and that's why I kind of wanted to just like, let's just stay friends. I knew the friendship was gonna be ruined. But yeah, definitely red flags were being waved.
Okay. And I'm still gonna ask my question. It's gonna take us a little bit over,
Please,
but that's okay. Um, so my question is now, as a seasoned, mature adult, what do you feel is too far in disrespect? And I'm gonna go ahead and answer first. For me, at this point, if I come to you with anything and you talk me down, you gaslight me, you tell me that you're not doing it. Now, if you're defending yourself saying, I apologize, that's not what I meant, that's different. But if you flat tell me that my feelings are invalid because you don't feel like you were doing it, that's disrespect. And I can tell you right then at that moment, if there's not a discussion and an apology that brings the entire situation out, I'm out the door. I'm done. As me as an adult, and maybe it's because of what I've been through, but me as an adult, I don't have time for all that. I'm not. I don't want to be your friend. I don't want to be your homegirl. I'm not finna lay up with you. We not finna kick it on the phone no more. You about to walk out my life. I'm gonna block you on everything, and I'm gonna walk because I know my worth now, and I know that not only is my time valuable, but my energy and my heart is. And if you don't want that, I guarantee you somebody out there does. And I'm not fighting for, and I'm not saying I'm not fighting for nobody, because if the person is worth the fight, you're going to fight for them.
Mm-hmm.
No, but I'm not going to allow someone to disrespect me or put me down in order to keep them in my life. It will never happen again for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, how far is too far, in my opinion, is if we have the conversation and the situation continues.
Mm.
So, how far is too far for you now as an adult, Cassandra?
Well, I will say it is disrespect looks different when you're in a respectful, loving relationship,
Mhm.
right? There's still lines that are going to be crossed because we're human. There's still arguments or disagreements, I should say, that are going to happen because we're human. So I feel like when you're with the right person, the severity of the disrespect isn't as high as the situations we previously talked about. My husband now he's amazing. I could sit here and rave about him forever. But there are still, of course, like little things that I'm like, hey, I don't like that, right? But they're like silly little things. He has a tendency, he's always moving around a lot. Like, so for me, it's like, don't walk away while I'm talking to you. Like, I'm trying to talk to you. He's like, yeah, but you talked to me while I was already doing something. So I'm like, okay, but then you just like stop moving. So the like I said, the severity, those seem like little things, but that's how it should be. That's how it should be. That's a healthy relationship where it's the little things that are disrespect. I always told him a pet peeve of mine is if I'm asking you something, do not, even as if it's, hey, what's wrong? He like most men, they internalize their emotions, their feelings, their thoughts. And I'll be like, what's wrong? I can see it in his whole demeanor and everything about him that something's wrong. And that's why I'm asking. And he'll be like, nothing. And I'm like, don't tell me nothing. So I'd rather you tell me, hey, look, I really don't want to talk about it right now. But don't tell me nothing. Don't look at me in my eyes and lie to me. And I know that's not the intention. I know he's not trying to lie to me. I know it's not that he's hiding something from me. It's not, trust me, it's not that. It's not that. It's just that he's just a man who keeps everything to himself. So it's like pulling teeth. So that is the disrespect that I guess in a sense I view as disrespect. Still the cursing, which we don't curse at each other. Um, Ying and Yang can attest that I hardly curse at all. But I would say the disrespect that I'm dealing now, which wasn't exactly the question, but I would say that's kind of where I'm like, no, like, don't tell me nothing's wrong with, don't look me in the eye and tell me something that's not true. You could still tell me, hey, I just don't want to talk about it, but don't tell me nothing's wrong when I know something's wrong. Just tell me you don't want to talk about it right now. And me, right, then I should respect that because it could be disrespectful if I'm pushing. He's telling me I don't want to talk about it right now. So if I'm like, no, but tell me. No, but that's not me honoring how he feels. So then me wanting to respect him, then I'm like, okay, but we're gonna talk about it later. We are gonna talk about it eventually. Don't gotta be right now. So I know not exactly the question that you asked, but just more speaking on um, what disrespect looks like in my life now. I can't hear you.
I don't know why my microphone turned off, but here we are.
Okay.
So all I said is it makes sense that that would be your answer because you are a married woman now,
Hmm.
and Sheena and I aren't. We have different experiences right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that would make sense that that's your answer. And I also want to put out there that I know y'all heard her say at the beginning that she's married to Sheena's brother. That is a separate brother. Sheena
Oh
has
yes,
two. And me and Cassandra aren't like sister wives or anything.
we're not in the throuple.
Oh
So
no.
I just
We
realized
get
that we've never talked about Yang's family except for Adam on a couple of calls, her 15-year-old. So
Yeah.
I didn't want to throw anything off and people be like, dang, that's a weird situation. And
Yeah.
and Ying had her boyfriend's wife on there. Like, no, different brothers, y'all, different brothers. So
You know, went
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
show to drop that knowledge and that
Yes.
whole
Yes. Good thing you clarified. Good thing you clarified.
I didn't want us to be the next topic on some weird site.
People asking, like, what's it like being in a throuple?
That's right, yeah. It's a throuple.
All right,
All right,
Sheena,
Sheena,
your
Go ahead.
question. You got the same question.
Okay. So you said the question was,
what
what's
is
the
too
ultimate
far for you now?
now that I am uh turned 29? So now that I'm a 29-year-old, I'm mature, and I guess I'm a person that I do give a lot of second chances. So I know that about me, but
Second
I
or third, fourth, fifth, sixth?
27.
we're not we're not going to go there. See, those are the olden days. Okay, we been matured up from that. But I'm just
Good.
gonna say like the what I need now is like open communication. So ultimate would be too far for me now. It's like, and it's hard for me to. You already know. Y'all know me. It's hard for me to talk about my feelings and what's bothering me, or I'll just keep it on the side until it's like festering and it begins to, volcano eruption, and then it blows out of proportion, and then, you know, everything is all chaotic. And then he was like, well, you should have been said something. Well, no, I didn't. I let it fester. So it would be too much now, seeing that I am maturing and I'm growing, that once I like am able to communicate that to you, like I'm communicating that to you as far as, this the disrespect or what's bothering me, and you continue to do it, is like a slap in the face, like, all right, that I called disrespect on it, or that I have a problem with this, or this, and then you turn around and continue to do it. It's like you don't give a. I told I told Ying I'm not gonna drop no F bombs. So it's like you don't care. So it's like at that point, it's like at this season age of 29, I'm gonna say, um, I'll do it's ultimate. Like, it's walking. Like I'm not once I like get to that level and I communicate that to you and you continue to do it, then there's nothing else left. And then I'll be with Ying, like, you're done after that. And then once you're done, you can close and move on. But as far as
Okay,
like,
so I was about to ask you a question, but you actually answered it, and that's why I stopped. That's why I put my hand up and then I stopped, because I was gonna ask you, like, okay, you saying, once you communicate it, that's your point that you're done. But I was gonna ask you, is that your point that you're done, or is that your point that you actually cut contact? Like, is that the point? But then you went on to say, that's what, just like with Ying, that's I'm walking, I'm out. And listen, but I feel like all three of us that went through that journey with whomever we did at whatever age we did, not only did we all learn from it, but we were all able to grow from it. I'm not going to say that communication is always the strongest suit with a lot of people that I know. Like, I can say my partner in life is not the best with communication at all. And
that's another.
Sheena is over there laughing because that's her brother, and she the exact same way. And I'm gonna just say that. That's all.
And
Um,
the other brother is the exact same way
Right.
the
too.
whole family is like a thing for them.
That's why I was like, shoot. We all don't talk about nothing. We keep it inside. We don't want.
But let me say this: Sheena is really good at communication with other people, Like, she might not always be the best at communication in her personal situation and what she's going through, but she does know how to pick up the phone. Like, she'll call me and she'll talk to me about stuff, and she'll just be like, I just want to make sure I'm okay and this isn't like too far deep in my head or things like that. So she's really good at communication in general, which I can't really say. I don't know Cassandra's husband well enough to say whether or not he is. If he's anything like my partner, then he probably absolutely sucks at it. Um, so Sheena definitely got the communication genes out of the children. Um, savor it, girl, savor it. But but and that's not talking trash at all. If I need him to communicate with me, he'll finally break down and do it. But if it doesn't need to be said, then my plus one just doesn't say it. And he'll flat tell me, like, well, why do I need to say that when you know that? And that's a valid point. He shouldn't have to say things that I already know, even if I'm just looking for validation. I shouldn't
I was
have to
just about
seek
to
that
say,
validation.
you just need that reassurance, and like you said, the validation. So we just want to keep hearing
But if
it.
you love
To be
yourself
sure
the way that you're supposed to, they say that you're not supposed to have to seek reassurance or validation from anyone but God.
But when you deal with a
Great.
lot of people who change constantly, then you get stuck in that wheel. You see,
Right, but
that's
you
what
gotta
makes
get yourself out of that will. And that's, listen, I'm still learning that too. Me and my ex have been split up for over 3 years. And me and my current boyfriend have been together for 3 years. And I can tell you I still have moments where I'll be like, "Hey babe, does this look all right?" And number 1, he's going to say yes regardless.
Yeah.
No, so I don't even know why I ask him things. I need to start calling somebody that hates me and be like, "Yo, do I look good? Does this look good on me today?" Because they're gonna be honest. But coming to him and saying, "Hey, do I look good in this?" He's he's gonna get frustrated. He's gonna be like, "Yeah, yeah." And because at some point we have to step up, not as women. I don't want to say as women. At some point, as humans, we have to step up and say, "Hey, this is my leg. I'm gonna stand on it. You're gonna either accept it or not."
you got to be secure in where you are, and not only in your personal life, but in your relationship. If you're secure as where you are in your relationship and where you are with you and your partner, then you don't need
And if
that
you're
extra
not
validation.
secure with your partner, they should not be your partner.
I am going to piggyback though on what Sheena said. She said you have to be secure with where you are. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I think you have to be secure of who you are,
Yeah,
not
where you are is
where
gonna change
you
all the
are.
time.
Yeah, and even like where you are in life, right? Because I could be at the bottom, but if I'm secure in myself, if I'm confident in myself, I'm not going to stay at the bottom, right, for long, because I'm gonna get myself out of that. Where if you're secure in
Yeah.
who you are, and it doesn't mean there's the difference between confidence and cocky. I remember, my parents knew what I was going through with my ex, because I mean, especially because I was so young, where I was living at home, like they knew, and I remember, my mom asking me, like, why don't you feel like you deserve more? And ironically, I never felt like I knew I didn't deserve it. I knew I didn't, but I loved him and I had hope he was going to change. I never looked at it as, oh, this is what I deserve. I don't deserve love. I don't deserve to be loved. I never felt that way. I never felt like I deserved it. I knew that I deserved better, but it was getting up the I guess the courage, or whatever you want to call it, to be like, no, like, even though I love him, he is not going to change, so I have to make the change. And that's another thing I just want to touch on. If, with all of our stories, it came down to a choice. We chose. I mean, you chose that day to leave. Shina, you chose to leave. I chose to leave. Even though even if it was them who said, like, I don't want to be with you, it was still a choice that we made, and then we chose to stay away. So you choose to not put up with it anymore. You choose to leave, and then you choose to stay away from that person. So that
Right.
was just kind of two things: that being secure in who you are and just making that choice for you. And it's not easy. If it was easy, none of us would have gotten as deep as we had gotten. So it's not
And
easy to put an end to the disrespect and to leave, but it is so, so, so necessary. Not easy, but it's necessary.
Yeah, and I want to say that I agree with you, and you clearing that up, because that's ultimately what I meant to
Hmm.
say. Security
Hmm.
yourself, and you are, but more in yourself. So I'm glad
Hmm.
you picked that.
Awesome. Well, I don't know about y'all, but I feel like this has been a very productive little chat.
Yeah.
And
I hope so. I hope it helps somebody.
And that's my biggest thing. And that's all we're trying to do here. Now, guys, if you're going through something bad and you need to reach out, again, mine and Sheena's inbox is always open. I'm sure that Cassandra, who is homegirl, feels exactly the same. If you just need
Absolutely.
to talk to somebody, or things have just gotten too far and you don't know how to approach it or how to let go or what to do, reach out. Because even if we can't help you, we can definitely direct you to resources that can. And
Right.
that's the big thing I
Absolutely.
want everyone to remember. Before we jump off of here tonight, I do want to just go ahead and touch on our business spotlight for the day. Our business spotlight is something called Everyday Dose. Listen, y'all, this is a mushroom coffee that has absolutely changed how I function as a person. And with the ADHD that we can all see that I have as a person on a constant basis, especially on here, I want to point out that this coffee helps you focus. It helps you with energy levels. And I don't know about other coffee drinkers because I'm a coffee drinker that'll drink coffee on and off all day if I have to in order to get through the day. But there's no caffeine crash with this coffee. And that's the biggest thing for me that was important. Um, it doesn't have a horrible taste. I don't know how many people have tried it, but I just want to say everyday dose, if nothing else, is worth the trial box. It is definitely worth taking the time to try it to see if it does work for you. You won't see a big effect the first like 2, 3 days, but by the time you hit day 5, you're gonna feel it, you're gonna see it, and it's worth the $30 to try it. So I just want to throw that out there. Go do your own research. I always encourage everyone to look more into it. Make sure you're not allergic to anything. Make sure that this is going to fit you, your lifestyle, and your needs. It's just something I prefer to do over taking medicine. So, you know, everyone do what you need to do after consulting with your doctor. Don't take my advice. I'm not a doctor, people. I'm in property management, so don't take my word as medical advice.
I don't take mine either, because I get mine from the aliens.
Well, with that being said, y'all have a great night. We will see you next week live at 11. And just keep in mind, Ying Yang the podcast is 2 people, 2 opinions,
Two
real talk.
real talk.
Bye bye.
Bye, y'all.
Good night. Thank you guys for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us, Cassandra.
It was so much fun. I love you guys. Thank you guys for listening wherever you're listening.
Y'all have a great night.